The transport ship hummed quietly as it drifted through the soft blue light of the Yulon Nebula. Inside, Ethan Cole sat near the viewing port, staring out into the endless waves of color. He had never seen space look so peaceful. After years of working as an engineer on human colonies, this was the first time he had taken a civilian transport instead of a cargo vessel. He wanted rest, silence, and maybe a chance to forget everything that had gone wrong on Mars Outpost 12. He didn't expect that peace would bring him something far stranger than work ever had. A gentle chime echoed through the corridor. "Attention passengers," said the voice of the ship's AI, smooth and calm. "We will soon enter Karen space. Please remember to respect all cultural protocols when interacting with the Karen delegation on board." Ethan frowned. He had heard of the Karen before, tall, graceful beings with soft silver skin and eyes that shimmered like liquid glass. They were known to be calm, logical, and intensely curious about humanity. But they rarely interacted directly with humans, especially not on mixed transport ships like this. A few moments later, the airlock door opened, and 3 Karen stepped inside the passenger deck. Conversation immediately quieted. Everyone stared, not out of fear but fascination. The tallest Karen, who seemed to be the leader, moved with an elegance that made even the artificial gravity seem to bow to her rhythm. Her hair shimmered faintly like moonlight, her voice a soft tone when she spoke to the attendant. Ethan noticed how the other passengers whispered quietly, trading guesses about who she was. Ethan, on the other hand, was simply tired. He leaned back, eyes half closed, hoping to avoid any attention. But fate had other ideas. When he opened his eyes again, she was standing right in front of him. "You are human," she said simply. Ethan blinked. "Last time I checked." Her lips curved slightly, almost like a smile. "I am Lirani, daughter of the Karen High House of Venra. I have studied your kind through the interstellar exchange. You are different from the reports." "Well," Ethan said, trying to sound polite, "reports never capture the best parts." Her eyes shimmered, and she tilted her head as if analyzing him. "Perhaps that is true. Would you speak with me during this voyage? I wish to understand your species more closely." It sounded innocent enough, so Ethan agreed. They spent the next several hours in the ship's observation lounge, where stars drifted slowly past the window. Lirani asked endless questions about human food, laughter, emotions, and even the concept of family. Ethan answered the best he could, though sometimes he found her curiosity both charming and unsettling. At one point, she leaned closer and said softly, "Your kind feels deeply. It is fascinating. The Karen have studied emotion, but we rarely experience it in such raw form. You smile when you are sad. You forgive when you have reason to hate." Why? Ethan thought about it. Because we learn from it. Feelings aren't weaknesses. They remind us we're alive. She seemed to consider this seriously, as though he had said something profound. Then she smiled again, this time more genuine. As the hours passed, their conversations became more natural. Lirani even laughed once, a light musical sound that drew attention from the nearby passengers. Ethan realized that despite her calm, logical manner, there was something warm about her presence, something human in its curiosity. When the ship stopped for refueling at the next station, Lirani surprised him again. She waited for him near the docking corridor, holding a small silver crystal in her hand. "This is for you," she said. "It is a memory crystal. It will allow me to remember your energy signature." Ethan took it carefully. "You make it sound like I'm leaving for good." "Perhaps not," she said softly, "but I wish to remember." Her voice carried a strange sadness that made Ethan pause. He wanted to ask what she meant, but before he could, the intercom announced boarding time. They went back to the ship together. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He replayed their conversations over and over in his head. There was something different about Lirani, something beyond curiosity. She looked at him not as a study subject, but as if she saw something valuable, something rare. The next day, the ship entered Karen space. The AI announced that passengers could now view the twin planets of Venra and Callus through the portside windows. Ethan stood there, amazed by the sight. 2 blue-white worlds dancing around each other like mirrored gems. Lirani stood beside him. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "Yeah," Ethan said quietly. "I didn't think anything could look this peaceful." "Peace can be lonely," she replied, her voice soft again. "We have had peace for centuries. But sometimes Peace without passion is an emptiness of its own. Ethan turned to her. You sound like someone who's missing something. She looked up at him, her glass-like eyes reflecting the stars. Perhaps I am. In my culture, bonding is not a matter of emotion but compatibility. Yet lately I find myself wondering what it would be like to choose differently. Ethan hesitated, unsure where this was going. Differently how? To choose as your kind does, she said quietly. To feel first, then decide. The words lingered between them. He didn't know what to say. He wasn't sure if she was speaking scientifically or personally. But there was a gentle weight in her voice, a sincerity that made his heart beat faster. Later that evening, as the ship prepared to dock at Venra's orbital station, Lyrani approached him again. Her usual calmness was gone. She looked nervous, even uncertain. Ethan Cole, she said softly, I must ask something of you. It is unconventional by both our standards. He looked at her, waiting. My people seek to learn about human emotional bonding, not through study, but through experience. I was chosen to understand this firsthand. She paused. I have decided to choose you as my mate. The world seemed to freeze around him. The hum of the engines faded. The stars outside blurred into streaks. Ethan blinked, thinking he had misheard her. Your mate? He repeated slowly. Yes, she said simply. It will be mutually beneficial. You will live among us. I will learn through you. And in return you will share our knowledge, our world, and our connection. Ethan stared at her. His mind was a storm, half confusion, half disbelief. It was absurd, impossible, and yet when he looked into her eyes there was no doubt she meant it. He opened his mouth to speak, but found no words. He wanted to laugh, to ask if this was some cultural misunderstanding, but instead all he managed was, Are you sure? Her answer was immediate. I have never been more certain of anything. When the ship finally landed, Lyrani extended her hand to him, not as a request, but as an invitation. He hesitated for a moment, feeling the eyes of other passengers on him. Then, against every bit of logic in his mind, he took her hand. It was warm, surprisingly human. And that was the moment Ethan realized he might have just made the most foolish, fascinating decision of his life. The docking bay of Venra Station was bright and filled with smooth metallic light. The air smelled faintly of ozone and some kind of sweet floral scent. Ethan followed Lyrani down a long ramp, trying to ignore the dozens of eyes watching him. Most were Karen, tall, graceful, and almost glowing with quiet calm. Their expressions were unreadable, but their curiosity was clear. Humans were rare here, and none had ever arrived holding the hand of a Karen noble. Lyrani walked confidently, her posture elegant and proud. She did not release his hand even when a group of officials came to greet her. They bowed slightly and spoke in a gentle, melodic language that Ethan did not understand. Lyrani responded in the same tone, her words flowing like a song. After a short conversation, she turned to Ethan. They are from the council, she explained. They have been informed of my decision. It was unexpected for them. I can imagine, Ethan said with a nervous smile. Humans aren't exactly the usual choice, huh? Her lips curved faintly. No, but I do not choose usual things. They entered a sleek transport pod that carried them across the shining city suspended in the clouds of Venra. From the window, Ethan saw endless silver towers reaching toward the sky, connected by light bridges that shimmered like glass. The people below moved calmly, every motion deliberate and graceful. There was no noise, no chaos, only order. It was beautiful, but almost too perfect. Do you ever get tired of the quiet? Ethan asked as he looked outside. Sometimes, Lyrani said softly. We have built a world without conflict, but also without the small imperfections that make life unpredictable. That is why your kind fascinates us. You find beauty in chaos. When they arrived at Lyrani's residence, Ethan felt another wave of surprise. It wasn't a cold palace like he had imagined. The structure was smooth and curved, built into a mountain cliff that overlooked a sea of soft white clouds. The walls shimmered faintly, alive with gentle light. Inside, everything moved in harmony. The walls breathed, the furniture adjusted to their shape, and the air felt warm and alive. This is your home? Ethan asked quietly. It will be ours, she corrected softly, if you still wish to stay. Her words carried a warmth that made his heart skip. He nodded, unsure why he couldn't look away from her. She smiled, small, but real. That evening, Leilani introduced him to a small circle of Karen scholars. They were polite but cautious. They asked him questions about human society, emotions, and relationships. Ethan answered as best he could, speaking about laughter, friendship, and love. When he mentioned how humans sometimes risk everything for the people they care about, the scholars looked puzzled. Such risks seem illogical, one said. Why choose pain for the sake of another? Ethan smiled faintly. Because sometimes love is worth more than logic. The room fell silent. The Karen exchanged quiet looks as though processing something new. Leilani, however, watched Ethan with bright eyes as if she already understood. Later, when the scholars left, she stood by the window with him, looking at the glowing skyline. They do not understand yet, she said softly, but I think I do. What do you mean? You humans are fragile, she said, but you live with such strength of heart. You risk pain to feel something real, that is, extraordinary. He didn't know what to say. Her words were simple, but they carried more meaning than she realized. For the first time, he saw that she wasn't just studying him. She was changing because of him. Days turned into weeks. Ethan began to learn the ways of the Karen. He studied their language, their customs, and their rituals. Every morning, he walked through the floating gardens that surrounded the house. The plants there were unlike anything on earth, soft, glowing vines that responded to touch, and flowers that sang when the wind passed through them. Sometimes Leilani joined him, and they talked about both their worlds. One morning, as they watched the sunrise above the clouds, Leilani spoke quietly. My people expect logic in everything, but lately my heart does not listen to logic. Ethan looked at her. Is that a bad thing? I do not know, she said with a small smile. But when I am near you, my pulse changes. My mind slows, I feel alive. He couldn't help smiling. That sounds pretty human to me. She laughed softly, the sound delicate and bright. It was the first time he heard her laugh without restraint. That moment stayed with him longer than he expected. One evening, she invited him to the Hall of Resonance, a vast chamber filled with crystal pillars that glowed when someone spoke. She explained it was a place of truth where words carried energy. It was where Karen bonded with chosen partners, sharing thoughts and memories. Ethan looked around nervously. You mean like a ceremony? Yes, she said, but not one of obligation, one of trust. I wish to share my essence with you, Ethan Cole, if you allow it. He hesitated. What does that mean? It means, she said softly, that you will see my memories and I will see yours. We will understand each other without barriers. It was a huge step, one that both frightened and fascinated him. But when he saw the sincerity in her eyes, he nodded. All right, I trust you. They stood facing each other, hands touching. The crystals around them pulsed softly, then brighter until light surrounded them both. Ethan felt warmth spread through him, images flashing in his mind that weren't his own. He saw Leilani as a child, walking through golden gardens, studying the stars. He saw her loneliness, her curiosity about distant worlds, and her first glimpse of humans through a screen years ago. Then he felt her emotions, gentle, curious, and now, something deeper, affection. In return, she saw his memories, his childhood on Earth, the red skies of Mars, the long nights working alone, and the quiet sadness he carried after losing everything he built. She saw his heart, his humor, and his longing for connection. When the light faded, neither spoke. They simply stood in silence, breathing slowly. Leilani's eyes were filled with quiet wonder. I felt your sorrow, she whispered, and your hope. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. And I felt your heart. You're not as logical as you think. She smiled softly. Perhaps not anymore. From that night onward, something changed between them. They moved together more naturally, spoke without hesitation, and understood each other with a glance. The Karen scholars noticed it too. Some were curious, others uncertain, but none could deny that something remarkable was happening. A human and a Karen had formed a true bond, something even science could not explain. One day, as they sat in the garden watching the floating lights drift in the air, Leilani said, Ethan, when I first met you, I wished to study human emotion. Now I only wish to feel it. He looked at her, heart racing. And how does it feel? She met his eyes. Like standing at the edge of a star, beautiful and terrifying. He smiled. That's love, Leilani. She reached out, taking his hand gently. Then perhaps I am foolish too. They sat together in silence as the lights above them shimmered like small suns. For the first time in her life, Lirani allowed herself to feel without question. And for Ethan, who had come seeking peace, he found something far greater: a reason to stay. Would you like me to continue with part 3, next 1250 words now? The days on Venra began to pass with a strange rhythm that Ethan had never known before. Every morning the sky glowed with soft golden light and the air shimmered like mist filled with tiny stars. The Karen city seemed alive, breathing in quiet harmony. Yet even in that stillness, something inside Ethan was beginning to change. He no longer felt like a visitor. The sounds, the scents, and the gentle hum of life around him had started to feel familiar, almost comforting. But what truly made the place feel like home was Lirani. Wherever she went, the world seemed brighter. One morning, Ethan woke to find her standing by the balcony, watching the clouds roll over the distant horizon. Her silvery hair caught the light, making her look almost ethereal. She turned when she sensed him. "You rise later than the sun," she said softly, teasing him in her gentle way. "Humans aren't built for early mornings," he said, smiling. "We like to dream a little longer." Her eyes glowed faintly. "Dreams," she repeated thoughtfully. "Your kind finds meaning even in sleep." "That is remarkable." Ethan joined her by the balcony. The world stretched endlessly before them, peaceful and bright. But despite the beauty, he noticed something different in her tone that morning. A quiet sadness. "Something's bothering you," he said gently. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "There are whispers in the council. They do not understand our bond. Some fear it." "Fear?" Ethan frowned. "What's there to fear?" "Change," she said simply. "The Karen have lived in balance for centuries. We control emotion because it has always led to chaos, but they believe I am allowing it to guide me." "And are you?" She smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but I do not see it as danger. I see it as truth." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. He understood her better now. She wasn't afraid of what others thought. She was afraid of what this might mean for her people. That day they traveled to the Great Archive, a vast hall carved into the heart of a crystal mountain. It was where all Karen knowledge was stored, light flowing through tall columns like liquid data. Lirani wanted to show him how her people preserved memory, not through books or machines, but through energy woven into living crystal. As they walked through the glowing corridors, Karen scholars stopped to watch them. Their faces were calm but filled with curiosity. Some even bowed slightly to Lirani out of respect, but their eyes always drifted toward Ethan with uncertainty. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked as they walked. "Sometimes," he admitted. "I miss the noise, the rain, the way everything's just a little imperfect. But here it's different, peaceful. Maybe too peaceful." She tilted her head. "Would you prefer imperfection?" He thought about it. "Sometimes imperfection makes life feel real." Her eyes softened. "Then perhaps that is what our world lacks." They stopped before a great pillar of light at the center of the archive. It pulsed slowly like a living heart. "This," she said, "contains the memories of our people. Every joy, every sorrow, every thought since the beginning. We share knowledge, but we filter emotion. Only what is useful remains." Ethan watched the light flicker. "And what happens to the rest?" "It is forgotten," she said quietly. "Because we believed emotion weakens reason." He turned to her. "Maybe that's why you needed a human." She met his gaze. "Perhaps that is why I needed you." The moment lingered between them, silent and full of warmth. She looked away only when a soft voice echoed through the hall. "Lirani of the High House," said a tall figure approaching from the other end of the chamber. His eyes were like clear glass, his movements precise. "The council requests your presence, alone." Lirani's expression remained calm, but Ethan saw tension in her shoulders. "Tell them I will come shortly," she replied. The figure bowed and left. Ethan watched her quietly. "That doesn't sound good." "They wish to question me," she said simply. "They believe my emotions cloud judgment." "Do they want to end this?" he asked carefully. "I do not know," she admitted, "but I will not deny what I feel." Later that day, she went to meet the council while Ethan waited at the residence. Hours passed. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the silver lights of the city began to glow. When she finally returned, her expression was calm, but her eyes told a different story. "They have decided to observe," she said softly. "They will not interfere for now, but they will watch." "Watch us?" Yes, they want to see if our bond causes imbalance or insight. They do not understand how love can exist without logic, but they wish to learn. Ethan nodded slowly. So we're an experiment again? She smiled gently. No, Ethan, this time it is a lesson for them, not for you. Days passed quietly after that. The council did not disturb them, but the awareness of being observed never left Ethan's mind. Yet despite the quiet tension, he and Leilani continued to grow closer. She taught him to speak her language more fluently, and he showed her how humans used art, music, and stories to express feelings. One evening, Ethan played an old melody on a small music device he had brought from Earth. The soft notes filled the air, echoing through the glowing chamber. Leilani listened with wide eyes, her expression tender. This sound, she said, it moves inside me. It feels like memory and hope together. That's what music is, he said softly. It's how we share what words can't. She reached out, touching the air near the speaker as if trying to feel the sound itself. Our world has sound, but not emotion in it. This feels alive. Ethan smiled. It's called heart. You can't measure it, but you can feel it. That night, as they stood under the endless stars, Leilani spoke quietly. Ethan, I think I am beginning to understand what it means to be human. He looked at her, surprised. And what does it mean? She smiled faintly. To be fragile yet unbroken. To be uncertain yet still move forward. To love even when it may bring pain, he nodded. You've learned fast, she laughed softly. No, Ethan, I have only begun to feel. But their peace did not last forever. A few days later, a signal arrived from the outer colonies of Karen space. Strange energy fluctuations had been detected, something that disrupted their communication systems. The council grew concerned and summoned all high houses to a gathering. Leilani was called to attend. Before leaving, she looked at Ethan. You cannot come to this meeting. It is restricted to Karen leadership, but I promise I will return soon. Ethan nodded reluctantly. Just be careful, she smiled gently. Always. When she left, the residents felt painfully quiet. Ethan walked through the halls, his mind restless. He knew the Karen world was peaceful, but something about this new development felt different. It was as if the universe itself was shifting. 3 days passed. Leilani didn't return. The council remained silent. Ethan tried to reach her through the communication channels, but every message was met with silence. On the 4th day, the door to the residence opened. But it wasn't Leilani. It was the same tall figure from the archive. You are Ethan Cole, he said formally. Yes. Where's Leilani? She has been delayed, the man replied calmly. The council requires your presence. They wish to speak with you. Ethan hesitated, a sense of unease rising in him, but he followed. The transport carried him to the central spire of the city, a towering crystal structure that touched the clouds. Inside, the council chamber shimmered with light and motion. Leilani stood at the center, her expression calm but weary. Around her, 5 Karen elders watched in silence. Ethan Cole, one of them said, We have learned much through you. But there is more to understand. Your presence here has changed Leilani, and perhaps all of us. We must know if this bond is strength or danger. Ethan met their gaze steadily. It's neither. It's choice. That's what makes it human. The chamber filled with quiet murmurs. Leilani looked at him with quiet pride, and in that moment, surrounded by beings older and wiser than he could imagine, Ethan realized something. This wasn't just about love between 2 different species. It was about what humanity brought to the stars: heart, emotion, and the courage to feel. Whatever the council decided next, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't foolish anymore. He was exactly where he was meant to be. Would you like me to continue with part 4, next 1250 words now? The city of Venra seemed even more alive as the days passed. Light flowed like liquid over the towers, reflecting softly on the clouds below. Ethan walked beside Leilani through the floating gardens that spiraled around the city, marveling at the way the plants reacted to their presence. Some of the flowers glowed brighter when she touched them. Others seemed to hum gently when he passed by. It was a subtle magic of the world, one that reminded him that this was not Earth, but it felt welcoming all the same. Despite the beauty, Ethan could sense the tension beneath the calm surface. Whispers of the council's watchful eyes lingered around them, unspoken but present. Yet Leilani moved with her usual grace, holding his hand as if to reassure him that nothing could disrupt what they shared. One afternoon, they arrived at a quiet courtyard where pools of crystal-clear water reflected the sky. Karen children played nearby, their laughter like musical notes floating in the air. Lirani knelt beside one of the pools and touched the surface lightly. Tiny ripples spread outward, shimmering with colors that Ethan had never seen before. "Your people see beauty in small things," Ethan remarked, kneeling beside her. "It's not just grand designs or towers. It's moments like this." Lirani looked at him, her eyes soft. "Humans find meaning in the fleeting. That is rare. That is why I am drawn to your kind." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him.
He had always known humans were resilient and emotional.
But hearing someone from another world admire it made him realize how extraordinary it truly was. That evening, they returned to her residence, a structure that curved around the cliffs like a protective shell. Inside, the walls shimmered faintly, responding to their presence with subtle changes in color. Ethan had grown accustomed to the living nature of the house, yet every time he entered, it felt like stepping into something sacred. "Ethan," Lirani said, her voice softer than usual, "I want you to see something." She led him to a chamber filled with floating crystals, each one glowing with a soft inner light. "These are memory crystals," she explained. "They preserve thoughts, emotions, and experiences. I wish to share more of my world with you." He followed her, intrigued. "How does it work?" "You touch the crystal and it will resonate with your energy," she said. "You will see a part of my memories and I will feel yours in return. It is not just knowledge, it is understanding." Ethan hesitated for a moment but then reached out. The crystal's surface pulsed warmly under his hand. Images and sensations flowed through him. The gentle lessons of her childhood, the songs of her people, the quiet moments she had spent alone under the stars. He saw her curiosity, her doubts, and the moments that shaped her. He felt her joy, her wonder, and the quiet hope that had drawn her to humans. When the light dimmed, Lirani looked at him, her expression calm, but full of meaning. "Do you understand now why I chose you?" she asked. Ethan nodded slowly. "I think I do. You didn't just want to study humans, you wanted to experience them. To feel what we feel," she smiled faintly. "Yes. And now you understand me as I understand you." Days flowed into nights, each one a tapestry of shared experiences, small lessons and laughter. Ethan introduced her to simple human joys, fresh bread from a small oven he managed to replicate, stories of Earth and Mars, and the quiet pleasure of watching a sunset. She responded with wonder, her silver eyes shining brighter than any star as she absorbed everything. But even as their bond strengthened, the shadow of the council's scrutiny remained. Some elders approached them occasionally, not with hostility but with caution. They observed, whispered quietly, and measured every action. Ethan could feel it, yet he refused to let it create fear. Lirani seemed unaffected by their presence, her confidence steady and graceful. One morning, as they walked through a glimmering forest suspended on the cliffs, Lirani stopped and faced him. "Ethan, you must understand something," she said. "Our bond is more than personal. It represents a change for my people. They fear what they do not understand, yet they are willing to learn." Ethan nodded. "I get it. And I don't care what they think. Us, it's real." Her eyes softened and she took both his hands in hers. "It is real. And it will teach them that emotion is not weakness, that love and trust can guide action just as much as logic." They spent the next hours exploring the city, speaking quietly, sharing small observations. Ethan noticed how even minor acts, offering a helping hand, pausing to watch the light on the water, brought her delight. Lirani was learning not just human feelings, but human patience, imperfection, and spontaneity. Evenings were their quietest time. They would sit by the edge of her residence, overlooking the vast expanse of clouds and city lights. Sometimes Ethan would talk about home, the way rain felt on earth, the smell of freshly tilled soil, the sound of children laughing in a playground. Lirani would listen, her silver eyes reflecting his words, absorbing everything with a sense of awe. One night, as the twin moons of Venra rose, she spoke softly. "Ethan, your presence here has changed me. I see colors, sounds, and moments in ways I never could before. And yet, I also see the courage it takes to feel fully, to accept pain as part of life." He reached out, brushing a stray strand of her hair from her face. That's humans. We embrace life, even the hard parts. It's not always easy, but it's what makes us alive. Her gaze held his, unwavering. Then perhaps this is what I was seeking all along, not knowledge, but understanding. Not observation, but experience. You have given me that. The following days brought new lessons. Ethan taught her to play simple games humans enjoyed, games of chance, of strategy, and of imagination. She laughed more freely than he had ever heard, her musical voice filling the halls with joy. Karen scholars who had once watched them with suspicion began to approach, curious, asking questions about human behavior and emotion. Leilani answered with patience, showing them that there was value in feeling deeply even if it seemed illogical. Yet amid the growth and laughter, a subtle tension remained. Messages from distant sectors of Karen's space hinted at disturbances, minor anomalies in energy patterns that no one could explain. The council sent envoys to investigate, and Leilani was summoned repeatedly for updates. Though the matters were delicate, she never let Ethan see her worry. She remained composed, guiding him through every challenge with calm assurance. One evening, as they returned from a meeting with a council envoy, Leilani paused by the balcony. The city lights shimmered beneath them like a sea of stars. She looked at him, her expression serene but thoughtful. Ethan, the council watches not to control but to understand. Your bond with me is unprecedented. They hope to learn from it to see if emotion and choice can coexist with our structured world. Ethan smiled gently. Then let them watch. What we have, it's real and nothing they say can change that. She nodded, taking his hand. Yes, and in this truth I find courage. Courage to be human in my way. Courage to embrace something I never thought I could. That night, as they sat together under the twin moons, Ethan realized something profound. He had come to Venra seeking peace, but he had found far more. He had discovered connection, trust, and the beauty of being understood in a way that transcended language, culture, and even species, and Leilani, who had once sought to study humans, had discovered the same truth. Through him, she had begun to feel, to laugh, to embrace imperfection and choice. Together, they had built a quiet world of their own, a world where understanding and love guided every step, and where the courage to feel made them stronger than any council or law could dictate. In that moment, Ethan knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he and Leilani had begun something extraordinary, something that would change both their lives and perhaps even the course of her people, forever. Do you want me to continue with part 5, final 1250 words to complete the story? The council chamber was quiet as Ethan and Leilani entered. The elders sat in a semicircle, their expressions unreadable. The light from the crystal walls reflected in subtle patterns across the floor, giving the room a serene, almost sacred feeling. Ethan's hand found Leilani's and she squeezed it gently. The small gesture grounded him, reminding him that whatever happened here, they faced it together. One of the elders, a tall Karen with soft amber eyes, spoke first. Leilani, Ethan Cole, your bond has been observed. It is unusual, but it has also brought understanding. The energy you share is unlike anything we have measured. We wish to know, how does it feel to you both? Ethan looked at Leilani and then back at the elder. It feels like being seen, truly seen, he said simply. It's not just about knowing someone, it's about feeling what they feel, trusting them completely and choosing to stay connected even when it's hard. Leilani nodded. Yes, it is a partnership, not just a union. We support and learn from each other. It is not just emotion, it is understanding and courage. The elders exchanged glances. There was no urgency, no hostility, only contemplation. One of the younger counselors leaned forward. And what do you bring to each other that is unique? What can humans offer that the Karen cannot? Ethan hesitated for a moment, thinking. Humans feel deeply. We experience joy, sadness, hope, and fear all at once, and we learn to move forward despite it. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes unpredictable, but that's part of what makes it real. I think that's what Leilani needed, to feel life in a way the Karen haven't fully embraced. Leilani's eyes glimmered. And I offer him perspective, patience, and clarity. Together we balance each other. He teaches me courage in uncertainty. I provide him guidance in understanding my world. There was a long pause. The elders observed silently, their fingers brushing the surfaces of small floating crystals that recorded the meeting. Finally, the elder with amber eyes nodded. Then perhaps there is wisdom in this union, he said slowly. Not just for you, but for all of us. Humans bring the unknown and the courage to embrace it. Karen often avoid uncertainty. Yet, through you we witness a new harmony. Ethan let out a small breath he didn't realize he was holding. Lairani's fingers tightened around his hand, her smile quiet but full of meaning. The council meeting ended with no further questions, no objections, only a silent acknowledgement that something had changed. As Ethan and Lairani left the chamber, the city outside felt brighter, as though the energy of acceptance had spread into every corner. Over the following weeks, life returned to its quiet rhythm. They continued exploring, learning, and sharing. Lairani wanted to experience human life fully, and Ethan happily guided her. They baked bread together, watched sunsets from the cliffs, and even laughed at simple mistakes, like when Lairani attempted to walk a familiar path upside down, as Karen sometimes practiced. Ethan had never seen someone laugh so freely, and it warmed his heart in ways he could not describe. One afternoon, while sitting in a floating garden surrounded by glowing flowers, Lairani looked at him. "Ethan, have you ever thought about the future?" He smiled faintly. "I suppose. But it's never simple. Humans try, but the future always surprises us." She tilted her head, curiosity bright in her silver eyes. "And now with us and together, do you wonder what the future holds?" He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I do, but I'm not afraid anymore. With you, whatever comes doesn't seem so impossible." Her smile deepened, gentle and radiant. "I feel the same. I never imagined that choosing to feel could bring such depth, and yet here we are." As the moons rose that night, Ethan and Lairani sat in quiet contemplation. The world around them glimmered like a living painting, alive with energy and light. But their attention was not on the beauty alone. It was on each other, on the bond that had grown steadily, patiently, and unexpectedly strong. The following morning, a small celebration was announced by the city council, not of ceremony but of recognition. Citizens, scholars, and officials gathered in the central plaza, a space filled with floating lights and softly glowing structures. The purpose was simple: acknowledgement of the new understanding between species, sparked by a human and a Karen's choice to embrace trust and emotion. Ethan stood beside Lairani, feeling slightly out of place among the elegant Karen crowd. Yet he didn't feel intimidated. This was not a ceremony of power. It was a moment of shared joy and recognition. Children ran past laughing, and even elders allowed themselves small smiles. Lairani's hand rested in his, and together they radiated calm confidence. An elder approached and handed them a small crystal orb. "This is a symbol of trust," she said. "It carries the energy of this day, the learning shared, and the courage shown. Keep it as a reminder of what you have achieved. Together." Ethan took it, feeling warmth radiate from the orb. "Thank you," he said. Lairani leaned slightly closer. "It is not just a gift, it is a promise." That night, alone in her residence, Ethan and Lairani reflected on everything that had happened. Their bond had survived scrutiny, misunderstanding, and the weight of expectation. Yet it had also grown stronger, proving that choice, courage, and emotion could bridge even the most improbable gaps. Ethan looked at her, feeling gratitude swell in his chest. "You know," he said softly, "I never imagined I'd come to a world like this and find this. Us." Lairani smiled, resting her head gently on his shoulder. "Nor I. But sometimes the unknown brings the greatest gifts." For hours they simply sat together, holding hands and sharing quiet words. Ethan told her stories of Earth's oceans, forests, and skies. She shared memories of Karen history, art, and music, details humans could not experience fully but could feel through her words. Each story, each shared moment strengthened their understanding and their love. As the twin moons reflected on the glassy cliffs outside, Ethan realized how far he had come. He had started as an ordinary human, curious but cautious, and now he was part of something extraordinary. Not only had he found love, but he had become a bridge between two worlds. And in doing so, he had shown that humanity's greatest strength was not just intelligence or resilience, but heart. Days later, they stood on the balcony once more, watching a meteor shower paint the sky in brilliant streaks of silver and gold. Lairani's hand rested in his, and for the first time, they felt completely unburdened by expectation or scrutiny. "Do you think the council will ever fully understand?" Ethan asked softly. Perhaps not entirely, Lirani replied. But understanding is not always necessary. What matters is that we know, and that our bond proves what is possible. Ethan smiled, gazing at the streaking lights. Then I suppose we've done something good here. Something lasting. Lirani leaned closer, her silver eyes reflecting the meteors. Yes, and this is only the beginning. Together we will continue to teach, to learn, and to feel. And perhaps one day my people will embrace the courage of the human heart as fully as I do. He squeezed her hand gently. I'm ready for that journey, Lirani. With you. The night stretched on, peaceful and full of possibility. Stars twinkled above, mirrored in the glowing city below. Ethan and Lirani remained on the balcony, two beings from different worlds bound by choice, understanding, and an unshakable connection. In that quiet moment, surrounded by beauty, acceptance, and shared joy, Ethan realized that he had found something more valuable than peace or comfort. He had found a home, not a place, but a bond that transcended worlds. And as he looked at Lirani, he knew without a doubt that he had never been foolish. Saying yes had been the bravest, most rewarding choice of his life. Together they would face whatever the future held, not with fear or hesitation, but with courage, trust, and the enduring power of heart. And in that truth, their story, human and Karen, emotion and understanding, truly began.